Hi, everyone. We are so glad that you're here with us. Jonathan and Sandy and I, we have a guest today. Brent Schwanekamp is here with us. He is my husband. He's been an educator for 23 years and was a former math teacher, has been the assistant principal at Plainfield High School for 11 years, and then in July will take over as principal at Plainfield High School. And when we started planning our topics and we knew we needed to talk about the new diploma and how it relates to AI, the theme of our series, I thought there wasn't a better person to come on, but the expert in kind of this area. He has really dug in and really understands the ins and outs. And so we're so glad to have him with us today. We'll link our slides as usual in the show notes so you can grab them, grab contacts, grab these links on the top page. As we're thinking about AI, we just threw in our favorite tools: Magic School AI, Google Notebook LM, Google Gemini, and ChatGPT. There's a lot of tools out there, but we use these quite regularly to get the job done. So Brent, I'm going to throw it to you to get us started.
Well, thank you. Thanks for including me in your conversation. The new diploma, has been kind of on the forefront of all high school educators' minds over the last couple months and actually years as things have gone through. And it has really kind of sorted itself out very nicely, in my opinion, to help us. And I'm not going to focus necessarily on kind of the nuts and bolts of what it is. I think it is flexible. It's going to look different a lot of places. I've included in these slides, just for reference, 3 different slides. Two of them kind of show you maybe how we might lay out a framework for a Plainfield High School student. And the last one talks a little bit more about being a collegiate Quaker, what it means, like what you need to be doing if you're trying to get ready for college. We think that rigor is really important. And so as we processed and planned, we put these together, and I think they're going to be flexible. Chris and I have an incoming freshman, a member of the class of 2029, living in our house. And so our son will get to live and breathe this. So I need to do a good job of figuring it out. But I think it's going to live and breathe. I think it's going to be flexible and allow schools to offer opportunities that fit within their curriculum, but also fit within their planning. Where I see that connection with AI, and I think that the conversation is really about how does a tool like AI allow us to do our job better? And the thing that I think about at first, because I think I know this exists, is just how does AI help us with messaging? How does it help us create the posts, the emails, the parent squares in our district that go out to parents throughout the course of these new initiatives, these new plans, so that you can tell those stories. And AI does a really good job when you start sharing with it your message. And hey, I composed this message to, let's say, my staff about AI, about the new diploma. And now I'm composing a message to parents and students. What other things do I need to consider? And I'll be darned if AI isn't making me a better thinker when it comes to that messaging. And I can do it faster. I don't have to create and craft 3 or 4 different messages. I can create one message, or I can create bullet points to a message, and AI will help me turn it into a longer message. Or I'm more of even though I'm a former math teacher, when I type in paragraphs still, and it does a really nice job of, hey, what is it most important? Let's bold those key phrases. Let's create bullet points and condense down and make it more succinct, which is what parents are willing to read and what kids are willing to read. And so I think, to me, that's the first place that the easy access point for AI into this discussion is, okay, Plainfield is going to do this. How do we communicate it with our stakeholders? And I think that's a place that I really feel confident about using AI. And I think it's a really easy place to get started with that. And I think it's a really important place. So I think that's where we start as we look through this and, as we look at how we're going to do it. I think the other place that is really interesting, and you've shared with me, we joke, we're husband and wife, we spend a lot of PD time together. And usually it's, in the evenings after the kids go to bed on the couch, it's My brother is also is an educator, so the three of us will sit down as we wait for our kids to get done with Sunday school. That's a PD time for us where we're sharing. But one of the technologies you've shared with me is that RAG technology, where we're using, we're uploading resources. When you get those giant PDFs from the DOE of course titles and descriptions, or you get giant PDFs of different things, to be able to input that information, first of all, just as a user, to be able to help synthesize some of that information and ask questions about what's there, and to be able to connect those. I think, the concept between about a large language model is that it can take hundreds and thousands of pages of documents and synthesize that information in a way that my brain can't do smoothly and quickly. And so being able to have that tech about what classes we're going to teach, what are we missing, some of those things, I think that's really powerful. And another way that I'm seeing AI be a resource for us as we start to do this. I think the other part that you've talked about is turning that, not just as a user being able to have that technology, but turn that out to parents and students so that they can ask questions about curriculum and about things that we're offering using that technology. And we haven't gotten that far yet at Plainfield, but I think that's a really exciting place to think about where that could fit. I think the next piece of this whole process, as you look, and Jonathan, you can click ahead a couple slides or through these two slides if you don't mind. They're just looking at, what those plans could look like. And when I think about synthesizing data, like that Indiana College Core, which is what's at the heart of the Honors Plus seal for enrollment, there's a lot of moving pieces there. When you look at AP scores, when you look at dual credit classes in the different areas, and I'm at an advantage because I've lived it for 11 years, right? Like I've been in, we've kind of worked through all the different iterations of this. The ICC had a previous name, and I don't remember it, but it was like 12-letter acronym that nobody could remember, which is not a good acronym. But, these things have grown and evolved. And I think if I was a brand new administrator, jumping into this seat in 2025, it would be really overwhelming. And so being able to use AI to help you understand it better, understand it quickly. Hey, I need to I'm getting ready to make a presentation to parents. I want to understand the Indiana College Core better. Can you help me understand it? Can you simplify it? Can you give me the key bullets? The most what courses make the most sense, things like that. I think that's another piece of how you use AI to do this. And what's really cool about this is it has nothing to do with the new diploma. This concept of how we leverage AI to be more efficient at our jobs so we can do the stuff that matters. It's the giving me time so I can get out of my office and go walk into a first-year teacher's classroom and give them the support they need, I think is the piece where AI is going to stand the test of time, hopefully, over the last few years of my career. We've got a kindergartner, so that's at least 12 or 13 more years that we'll be doing this. But I think, that's the place where I want to be able to do those kind of mundane tasks, some of those, trying to process some of those large documents in a way that's more efficient so that I can build the relationships with our young teachers, with our students, families in a way that I can support them as they move forward. And again, Krista, when you and I talk about AI, that's the place where we think it's the most exciting place. It's not AI. It's not the, computers taking over the world. It's the, how does the computer support me so I can do the part of, loving students and teachers and kids and parents and making those relationship pieces really matter.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the thought about different audiences. That's been our theme the last couple of years on this show, capturing more than just the educators, right? But trying to think through the lens of parents and students. And I love the idea of taking one message and saying, what is important for students to hear? What is important for families to hear? And I think we can all agree that being freed up to do those tasks that really require our heart and our brain, and the synthesizing and going through thousands of pages of documents is not what really drives us in education. But the tool for parents, like I think from a parent standpoint, we were talking a little bit ago about, our own kids and our own family members and, nieces and nephews that we may have going through school and, helping them understand these tools are available and using it really as a collaborator, right? For students to be able to use it. Hey, set me up for success. Here are the diploma requirements. Here's what I'm interested in. Or parents, help me understand this. I want to help my student make really good decisions, but I need to understand it first as a parent. We're lucky that we live the educator side, but because we live the educator side does not mean we're experts in all of these areas. I mean, I bounce things off these guys all the time, and you obviously all the time, because there are certain things that we've really taken time to dig into, and there are other things that you can't possibly be an expert in all areas in education. So, Jonathan or Sandy, you guys have any thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on the fact that kind of just continuing on with what you were saying, I think sometimes because we live this, we also aren't sure how to clearly communicate all the nuances to our different audiences. And we miss things because we become blind to, like, this is just the way it is. And so when we can leverage AI to help us make sure we get all the details that all the different audiences are going to need, it's really helpful. The other thing, as you're talking, Brent, and maybe this is a question too for you, I know as some of these requirements are changing, we're probably going to be asking, and I've been really focusing on that teacher lens this year in our episodes, we're going to be asking teachers to do things a little differently too, and asking some of them to maybe teach different courses, or they might be teaching an English class, but looking through it through that different lens. As I've looked through some of the DOE presentations, they've talked a lot about, really only English 9 is required, but you might make an English course fit along with a pathway a student chooses. So if they're going towards a law pathway, that English course might be more around looking at court cases and writing in that type of way. And we haven't asked our teachers at the high school level necessarily to think about English in that way. So I'm curious if you see a way for teachers to utilize AI and supporting that work and what that might look like.
Well, I think you're very, very true about some of that flexibility and asking teachers to do new things. We're already seeing, even just supporting kids as they get into these into more internships, more workplace learning happening. Teachers aren't the experts in business that necessarily, your English, an art teacher may not be an expert on the trades, but that art teacher is really good at connecting with kids and supporting a teenager as they go through a learning process. They're used to doing learning maybe in the realm of drawing, but this kid is learning welding or learning, construction trades, and he wants to get out and get doing that. Well, we need to still support him. They're still a teenager. They're still our responsibility. And so how do we give those tools to teachers? And I think part of it is AI, because again, when I think about when a kid tells me about a career that they're interested in and I know nothing about it, and I'm still trying to help them pick which classes to take in high school, or like AI I have a student who's interested in this career and is interested in this kind of university or this kind of post-secondary. Help me think about what kind of classes make sense. I think there's a huge opportunity for AI to come alongside and support guidance counselors and to be able to support some of those kind of conversations that are happening, and really grow that and be able to synthesize and also summarize some of those conversations that happen with a counselor and a teacher, so that we kind of create a profile of a kid to help them make the next decision. And that next decision may be 6 months later, but not having to start from scratch, because AI helps us kind of summarizes maybe where a kid is academically on a pathway, but maybe how they're doing academically with grades or attendance or work-based learning. I think there's some cool, I'm not a code writer, be able to solve all those problems, but I can kind of see it, just it's a little blurry, but I think it's there. And I think one of the things that's really great about teachers is a lot of times while sometimes we're not great in meetings in terms of paying attention, we're really good at learning, and we're good at, once we learn something, teaching it to somebody else. And so what AI could do is help speed up that learning process, or help, hey, I'm going to teach these skills, but I need to make them applicable to kids who are interested in this career path. How do I make those connections? And it sees those connections probably faster than and more efficiently than a teacher might, when the teacher can then, once it makes the connections, the teacher can build out what does the learning look like, or build out the processes that are going to happen to kind of grow that piece of, like your example, the English class that's geared towards law. We're going to look at an English class next year that's geared towards internships for seniors. Like, how do we take the reading and writing that you've learned for the last 11 or 12 years of school and now apply it to this internship you're going to have, or this job that you're going to work 2 or 3 hours of your school day. Hey, we're going to connect that into your English class too, because sometimes senior English isn't always the most engaging for all of our kids. And so trying to find a hook to get them to want to read and write and kind of get across that finish line.
So I was kind of thinking about this. I normally take Brent the lens of early childhood and preschool kiddos, and how can we help? We're talking long time down the road, right? And you just mentioned you have a kindergartner. I have a 3-year-old and a baby. And so, how do I start to wrap my head around this when we're talking 13 years from now? And I think, being able to take a look at this and utilize AI to say, this is what my kid may potentially face when they are in high school. What are some of those things? What are some of those exploration things that we could be doing to help them learn about some careers that might potentially feed into some of these topics, and being able to use AI to examine those documents that, again, none of us have time to read, and then think about, these are some really key skills that I want my 4-year-old to practice right now. How do these relate to some of the things that they might actually need to do in 9th grade and up? So that's kind of where, as early childhood teachers and parents, thinking about that as, how can we not get overwhelmed with this information? You've got too much to get overwhelmed with right now anyways, but how can I start to build some of that thought process in that my kiddo is going to need when they hit high school already?
Well, and I think the only other thing I'd add to that, though, is really, you're exactly right, that forward thinking. Like, because sometimes our kids get to high school and the only career they know about are those that are the people who live in their house, right? And that's all they know. And they know they like math, or they know they like science class, but they don't know any careers that go other than math teacher and science teacher. Maybe they don't know any of the other careers. And so how do we leverage AI to help? Maybe I don't know any careers. Maybe as a parent or as a guardian, I don't know careers that are attached to fill in the blank thing that my kid's interested in. How do we leverage it? And then how do we also, I think the most important thing is, how do we model to kids using AI responsibly and using it to make our lives better, and not just be another, it's not a way to cheat on an assignment. AI is a way to really leverage that time. And I think that's the other piece of this that, again, and it's interesting because very little of this has to do with the new diploma. It just has to do with, hey, I'm trying to solve some problems, and how can I use AI to help me with that? And I think that's really the biggest part of this discussion.
Yeah, I would say, you hit the nail on the head. Our topic is the new diploma, but it's really showing how we can use AI to tackle so many things that come up in our day. Hey, I need a checklist for digital citizenship K2, and I'm scouring for things, and I can lean on AI as a collaborator. How many times do teachers or someone ask you a question and you're like, I don't know how a 90-minute reading block is aligned to the science of reading in 2nd grade, and I can have it build out a sample 90-minute reading, like all of the things that we would usually spend, right, so much time trying to dissect. We still care about those things, and we're still going to look at the outputs and use our judgment. But man, we are going to gain so many more insights so much more quickly. It's going to encourage so much creativity on our end as educators and as parents and for student use. I'm so excited about this conversation. I think that we covered so many things. I love what you said about really being a great collaborator for school counselors that are trying to do a job of helping every student find the best path that is personalized for them. And how could they ever know about every career that exists? But, I think about my time in fourth grade and how I could be using AI right now to say, I know this impacts the high school, but how does this impact me, right? What should I, like Sandy said, what should I be doing with these kids right now to help get them ready for what's coming? So I love this conversation. I'm so glad that we had it. Does anyone have any final thoughts before Sandy takes us out?
Just thank you for including me. I always like having these conversations, and we could have just recorded you and I talking on the couch because we have these way too often. But it was great to meet you, Jonathan and Sandy, and thanks for including me in your conversation today.
Yes, and I think if we have one piece of advice, it's if you've not tried one of these tools that we've been talking about, just get on and start simple, right? Start like a conversation. It's like a texting conversation, really. Start simple, refine your prompting, check out that RAG technology. It is not as overwhelming as it seems. It really is just that retrieval augmented generation where you can upload those huge documents. We like Magic School AI for that. We like Google Notebook LM, but let it start helping you synthesize some of this information and break it down for sure.
Well, Brent, thank you again. That was just wonderful and such a great feed into what we've been talking about all year and just the power of AI and that power of taking a risk to just try it. And we have to, whether we are talking about teachers, parents, administrators, exposing our kids from infancy up to, maybe not an infant, how about toddler age? Toddler age up to even collegiate level and beyond. So thank you. Remember to scan the QR code and fill out the survey. If you do that and provide us some feedback, you will have the ability to get a potential prize from Magic School, some swag. And then we're so excited about our final month. I can't believe it is going to be May, our final one. And this is going to be about AI in the summer months and how do we keep the learning happening using AI, but also how do we use AI as time for ourselves? How can I use AI to plan a vacation, to plan a trip to the park with my kids and do some embedded learning while I'm there? So it's going to be a fun one. We're super excited. Karisa, Jonathan, great to see you. Thank you all again. Don't forget to scan our QR codes and follow us on social media, as well as Keep Indiana Learning on Instagram, X, the website, all of those fun things. And we will see you in May. Bye.